This is the Wellness Club, where we dive into all things wellness, from nutrition to fitness to productivity and more. We are exploring the science to help you feel your best inside and out. I'm your host, Cass Camp, and I am so happy that you're here. Welcome to the club. Hi guys, welcome back to the Wellness Club. My name is Cass, and if you're new here, welcome for the first time. I know I have some new listeners, so welcome to the podcast. Today's episode is all about nutrition, and we're gonna jump into the basics of nutrition. It's been a while since we talked about nutrition, and the reason that I wanna do this is because I think nutrition gets a little overcomplicated, especially on social media. Yes, nutrition is very nuanced and there's a lot of things, and the metabolism in the human body, there's a lot of complicated topics in there, but there are the basics that if you follow the basics, that's like 95% of it. Yes, we could get into like the very specific pathways and metabolism and all these different things, but the basics, that's what you need to know if you're trying to maintain a healthy weight, lose weight, gain some muscle, change your overall physique, or just feel better. It's all in the basics. I want this episode to serve as more of a guidebook or a cheat sheet to nutrition and just be the basic things, the foundational things that you need to know. I'm a nutrition coach. I'm certified through Precision Nutrition, and I'm also a certified personal trainer, women's fitness specialist. I have a degree in public health, so I'm very well versed in this space. And so I really want to just simplify it for you. So the first thing that we need to talk about are the different nutrients that our body needs. And you may have heard of these before, but we have our macronutrients and our micronutrients. Macronutrients are your proteins, your carbs, and your fats. These are the things that give your body direct energy. An analogy that I like to use that I think makes sense for a lot of people is, let's say your body is a car. If you don't give the car gas, what happens? Nothing. Your car will not run. That's the macronutrients of it. But then in the car, there's also a lot of other things like windshield wiper fluid, oil. I'm not really big on cars, but like all these different things in the engine to make it run, those things are also important. Yes, the gas is the main thing making your car run, but there's also a lot of other things that if you don't get the tune-up, if you don't get the oil change, if you don't do these other things, the car is not going to run well either. That's where the micronutrients come in. Micronutrients are smaller minerals and compounds that still have big functions in your body, but they're not giving your body direct energy. They're not the thing that your body's burning through to move, but they are helping you with your bone health, your heart health, your hormone health. I have a very specific episode on micronutrients. I'll link it in the description, but these are the vitamins, the minerals, the phytonutrients, micronutrients, all these different smaller nutrients that we still need. But let's go back to the macronutrients first, and then we'll get into micronutrients. Your macronutrients are what's giving you that direct energy, and this is where your daily calorie intake comes from. You've probably heard a lot about calories in versus calories out, especially if you're learning about weight loss, building muscle, being in a bulk, being in a cut, maintenance calories, all these different buzzwords you might have heard before. And this can get really confusing for people, so I want to simplify it for you. Your calorie intake, the calories in, are your proteins, your carbs, and your fats. It's what you're consuming every day. But something that doesn't get a ton of attention that is also part of your calorie intake is actually alcohol. Alcohol is what's considered empty calories because when you consume alcohol, there's no energy benefit from it, but there's still calories. So your body's not using alcohol to move, to think, to run, but it's still calories contributing to your calorie balance. That's why when people want to lose weight, usually people say you got to cut the alcohol because alcohol is just adding to your calorie intake without necessarily doing anything to benefit the body. And alcohol is a lot more complex on how you metabolize it and the negative effects and everything like that. But that's a whole nother topic. For now, in the calorie world, you just have to know that this also contributes to your empty calories. Not to mention the alcohol that you do drink also matters in your calories because yes, a vodka shot, plain vodka, is going to have a lot of alcohol calories. But let's say you have a margarita, that also has sugar calories, carb calories. So it's not just the alcohol calories, it's also the drink itself, and all of that matters. And maybe one day I'll do a full episode on alcohol. It's just a lot to dive into. So for now, we're just going to talk about the macronutrient side. But to keep it simple, your calories in is what you're intaking, and your calories out is how many calories you're burning throughout the day. From the sounds of it, it sounds like that means that's your exercise. So the amount of calories that you burn through the day is from your exercise. And while that's a small part of it, it's just a small part of it. At the end of the day, you can't really out-train a bad diet because your exercise and your training is only a very small percentage of how many calories you burn throughout the day. So when we break down how many calories we burn throughout the day, there's actually 4 different sections of your calorie output. The biggest section is what's known as your basal metabolic rate. This is your BMR. Your BMR is the biggest section of your calorie output. And what's cool about your BMR is this happens without you doing anything. Your BMR makes up 70% of the calories that you burn throughout the day, okay? 70%. That is a huge majority of your calories. And what's cool about it is you literally aren't doing anything. This is what your body needs solely to survive. I used to tell clients all the time, this is what would happen if you just laid on the couch and did absolutely nothing, like literally didn't even move. That's your BMR. This is what your body needs to process things, to beat your heart, to pump your blood, to do all the different things that your body does without us even thinking about it. That's a huge majority of your calorie output. This is also the part that people usually say is their metabolism. So maybe you've said this before or you've heard somebody say it, but you might have heard someone say, I have a slow metabolism and that's why I can't lose weight. That's not a fully accurate statement because there's a lot of things that go into how many calories you burn throughout the day. There's a lot of different factors. Some of the factors are things you can't really control, like your age, your gender. We know that men typically burn more calories throughout the day than women just by existing. Their BMRs are higher. But there is a part of your BMR that people don't give enough credit, and that's actually your skeletal muscle mass. Muscle is such a cool thing in our bodies because it's working for us all day. The more muscle that you have, the faster your metabolism is. The more muscle that you have, the higher your BMR is, meaning that just by existing, you're burning more calories throughout the day. What does that mean for us? Well, muscle has a ton of benefits. It's great for longevity. It's great for function. It's great for aesthetics. It's great for a ton of things. But one of the things that it means in this context is you can eat more and not necessarily gain any weight, not gain any body fat. Your body is using more calories throughout the day, so you can actually eat more. Remember, this part of our calorie output is the largest part. It's 70%. So when I would have clients come into the gym, we weren't just focused on adding a bunch of exercise. Our biggest goal was building up the BMR. And how do you do that? You build muscle. And you don't even have to build as much muscle as you might think to improve this. We would use in-body machines, which are like a body scan machine. And you could see that just 1 pound, 2 pounds, 3 pounds of muscle added onto the body not only made them feel so much better, look so much better, but it raised the BMR significantly that extra cookie, that extra salad dressing, that extra thing, they could indulge and enjoy that and not see any difference in their muscle and in their body. If you think you have a slow metabolism, I would look at your skeletal muscle mass because it's probably lower than where it should be for your body weight. And what's cool is that's something that you can control. You can start strength training, and it doesn't have to be a crazy amount of strength training. 2 times a week, you will see improvements in a few weeks. I promise. Like, I've seen it happen with my own eyes, and it's amazing when clients are like, wow, I can't believe just this amount actually improved this for me. I also want to add in that your BMR is an essential number to know because this is your minimum amount of calories. This is the minimum amount your body needs literally just to function. And it's usually doing things that you don't even know your body is doing. Things like breathing, circulation, building new cells. There's so many things that our body does just involuntarily, like it's happening without us consciously saying, hey, I need new cells, let's build them. So it's important that we're fueling our bodies. That's why like people say food is fuel and nutrition is fuel. Of course, nutrition is also socializing and everything like that. But I've seen it happen where sometimes people will get a scan or they'll use a calculator and they'll see like, oh, my BMR is X amount of calories. I'm just going to eat that and I'm going to lose weight. And it just doesn't really work like that. Even if you want to lose weight, you still need to nourish your body. Just depriving it and giving it nothing is not going to have the effect that you think it is. You need to fuel your body if you want to feel good and function well. And long term, it really is detrimental to your health. So I want to really make this crucial for you to understand because I've seen it, I've heard it. I know people that have said this, and it's just, that's not accurate. Like, you do not just want to eat your BMR because that is just the basic body functions. And then everything you do throughout the day is added on top of that. The next part of your calories out is what's called non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is referred to as NEAT in the fitness space. And your NEAT is your non-exercise activity. So this is the things that you are doing throughout the day that have nothing to do with deliberate exercise. And this makes up about 15% of your calorie output. So this is the second biggest category. I like this section a lot because this is where you can sneak in extra movement. This is when you're cleaning the house and you're moving around. This is when you take the stairs instead of the elevator. This is when you park a little bit further so you have to walk to the store. These are the things where you're getting exercise, but it's not deliberate exercise. It's usually very low intensity, like you're literally just walking at a very casual pace and you're getting a calorie burn. You might not think that you are because it's not this strenuous exercise that you see online, but this makes up 15% of your calorie output. And when I say these percentages, it's a range. Like, this isn't specific for every single person, but on average, this is about 15% of your calorie output. So this is a pretty big percentage. The next section of your calorie output is about 10%, and that's the thermic effect of food, which you might not have ever heard of before, but this is how many calories your body burns just by digesting its own food, which sounds like a little counterintuitive because you're eating these calories and then your body has to burn calories to eat the calories. But that's exactly what's happening. But the part that's really important here is every macronutrient has a different thermic effect of food, and they're not created equally. So for example, fats, they are the smallest thermic effect of food. They barely burn any calories to be digested, where protein is the highest. Your body works very hard to digest protein in a good way. This thermic effect of food helps you out. That's why protein is such a great macronutrient that people really hype up, and we'll get into the specifics, but protein is so important, and this is just one extra benefit of this. To put it into perspective, when you're digesting fats, the thermic effect of food is anywhere from 0% to 5%, where protein is anywhere from 20% to 30%. So that's a huge difference in how many calories are being burned just by digesting the food. This also leans into why when you eat protein, you're full longer because it takes longer to digest and process. So you actually stay full, you stay satiated a lot longer, and it curbs your hunger. And then the last part of your calorie output, the part that everybody talks about, is your exercise. This is the deliberate exercise you do throughout the day. This is the strength training, the running, the cycling, the HIIT workout, the yoga class. This makes up 5% of your calorie output, which is why you may have heard this before. You can't out-train a bad diet because your training only counts for a very small portion of your calorie output. Of course, exercise is so important, and there are so many benefits to exercise. Like, I don't want to get this confused here. Exercise is very important, and there's a ton of other benefits to it besides just adding to your calorie output. So I want to make that very clear. But in terms of just trying to increase how many calories you burn throughout the day, this is the smallest percentage of that. Your biggest bang for your buck when it comes to boosting your metabolism, and I'm using air quotes when I say that because that's just like a buzzword social media thing, but your biggest bang for your buck for this is building skeletal muscle mass. And to put it into perspective for you, you can go take a HIIT class and you can burn 300, 400, 500 calories in 1 hour. That's great. That adds to your calorie output for that day. But after you leave, the calorie output is done. Like, there's no more after the class. Something more sustainable and even more effective would be going to the gym, doing a strength training workout, really focused on muscle building, that maybe your Apple Watch says you burn 200 calories, 250 calories. But long term, that muscle building is actually going to do its job later, and you're going to continue to burn calories throughout the day. You're going to build muscle, which is going to work for you so that in the future, you're burning more calories simply by existing because you actually boosted your BMR. And truly the absolute best way to do all of this would be to combine a mix of both. So getting strength training in throughout the week and also doing those higher cardio classes to help with your cardiovascular health, like the HIIT or the running or the sprints or whatever. There's so many benefits to all these different workout types, but strength training is important. Like this is so important for your BMR, for your metabolism, for your body, for your muscles, for your longevity. Like I could go on and on and on. Everyone needs to be doing strength training. And if you don't believe me on this, go do a body scan. A lot of middle level gyms have body scans as part of their membership. Go get an in-body scan, go get a body scan done and see and track your muscle mass and look at the BMR section. You'll see when you have more muscle, it's higher. When you have less muscle, it's lower. And I'm saying this as if you stayed the same exact weight. I have in-body scans of myself where I will be the same exact weight, but my muscle is higher and my BMR is 200 calories higher. Like it's a real thing and it has nothing to do with the number on the scale. And just another little tidbit of information on this, muscle cells and fat cells look completely different. So you could be the same exact weight and have more muscle and you are going to be significantly smaller than being the same exact weight with more body fat cells. A body fat cell is a lot bigger than a muscle cell. A muscle cell is very tight. So that's why someone that has some muscle on them and a lower body fat percentage, they look more toned. That's how you get toned. It's not from, oh, I'm going to do a bunch of crunches in one sitting. It's actually from your body fat percentage and how much muscle is showing, because body fat and muscle look completely different, even if you weigh the same exact amount on the scale. Sorry if I'm getting a little bit too in the weeds with this, but I think that this is important and stuff that people don't necessarily understand. There's a lot of different directions that I could go with this, and maybe I will do another episode about like a calorie deficit and a calorie surplus, because I think that's also something that people struggle with. But I want to keep this simple for like the macronutrient, micronutrient side of it. So maybe I'll save that for a future episode. But just know that when it comes to a calorie deficit and a calorie surplus, there are right and wrong ways to do it. And I've even seen nutrition coaches and dietitians and people, professionals that have this a little bit wrong. And it's important to really do your research as well and advocate for yourself and understand this if this is something that you're doing. The most basic way I can say this is if you want to lose weight, your calories in has to be lower than your calories out. And if you want to gain weight, your calories in has to be higher than your calories out. Makes sense. If you want to stay the same, they're the same. But calories are not all created equally, and the amount that you vary it also matters. What I've seen happen is someone wants to lose weight, so they'll cut their calories significantly. And when I say significantly, I mean like 800 calories cut. They used to eat over 2,000 and now they're doing a 1,200 calorie diet. What's going to happen is at first, this is really going to work because your body is like starving basically. And so your body is going to lose weight. But the problem is when you cut your calories so significantly, you're usually losing muscle as well, which we don't want to do. Because as we know, the more muscle you have, the better your BMR is. The less muscle you have, the lower your BMR is. So when you do this, you're actually training your body to burn less calories throughout the day, which is a problem because at some point you're going to get tired of eating 1,200 calories. And 1,200 calories is very low and very unsustainable. And the amount that you would need is different for every single person. There are a lot of different macro calculators that you can use online. A lot of them are free. I personally like to use Precision Nutrition, which I'm pretty sure is free for the general public as well, as long as you send in your email. But if it's not, DM me. I'd be happy to calculate it for you and send it to you. But you really want to do deficits carefully and cautiously because if you go too far, there's a lot more you have to do to maintain it. And there are ways to do it. Like if you realize, oh my gosh, I'm in this, I've been eating way too low, I notice it's hard to maintain. There's something called reverse dieting where you incrementally add the calories back and do it in combination with exercise and everything like that. That's more of a complex thing that I could get into again in the future. But just know that anything that's causing you to cut your calories extremely lower than normal is not sustainable, not maintainable. You're likely burning more muscle than you should be, and it's just going to set you up for further issues in the future. When you look at an in-body scan and you see your BMR, I would never, ever, ever eat below that. That is like the bare minimum amount of calories that you need for your body to survive and exist. So it's important to be eating enough food, even if you're trying to lose weight. When it comes to overall macronutrients, like we talked about, we have our proteins, our carbs, and our fats. And there's a lot of different ratios that people talk about and use. But something that I want to be just blanket statement clear about is there is no perfect diet. The best diet is one that you can stick to and one that's made up of whole, unprocessed foods as much as possible. Now, this doesn't mean you'll never eat a processed food again, because the world we live in, food is also social. It's not just like fuel. Of course, it is fuel, but it's also community and culture and socializing and celebration and all these different things. So yes, processed foods have their place in your diet, but the majority of your diet should be whole, unprocessed foods. These are the foods that exist without a label. These are like your fruits, your vegetables, your lean meats, your whole grains, and even whole grains kind of steer into slightly processed because most of our grains are processed. So it's really your fruits, your vegetables, your healthy fats, your lean meats, fish, etc. To give you an example, an apple would be a whole unprocessed food. Then a slightly processed version of that would be applesauce. A more processed version of that would be like apple juice. And then an ultra processed version of this would be like apple fruit snacks or apple candy. These are the really processed, barely even food products. And I have a whole episode about why these ultra processed foods are so addicting. So I'll definitely list that in the description as well, because I think it's interesting to know food science and how these foods are made. It kind of makes you not want to eat any of them again. But ideally, you're sticking to the unprocessed and maybe slightly processed versions of these foods. And then on occasion, you're having the ultra processed versions. The reason that this is important is because the more processed a food is, the less nutrients it has. When these foods are made, they're stripped away of their nutrients. So you're still getting the calories, and you're usually getting higher calories because of added things, but you're not getting the nutritional benefit of the food. When you eat a real apple, you're getting so many vitamins, minerals, nutrients, fiber, naturally occurring sugar. You're getting all these really beneficial things that your body can benefit from. And then when you eat the apple candy, there's no fiber. There's a bunch of added sugar, added sodium, added fats. It's higher in calorie. And the worst part is it's not going to keep you full. For example, let's take a potato. You might eat an entire potato, right? Cooked in the oven or something. And by the end, you're going to feel full. You're going to feel satisfied because it's high in nutrients. It's lower in calorie. It's actually going to fill you, satiate you, versus the same amount of potato chips from one potato. You could eat the entire bag. You could eat 5 whole potatoes in the form of potato chip because they're stripped from their nutrients. They're not filling. They're made to be addicting. They're added with oils and fats and sugars and salts and these things that make you want to keep eating them. And you're going to get way more calories in those and not any of the nutrients to match. I know processed foods are so good, like they truly do taste good, but they're engineered to be that way. Food scientists are the ones making these foods have the perfect crunch, the perfect taste profile, the perfect boost of dopamine when you eat it. Like everything is made to be perfect. That's why they're addicting. And sometimes, yes, like you want to eat it. It's fun. It's celebration. I do all of that stuff. I have ice cream and chips and all that kind of stuff. But ideally, throughout the week, throughout the majority of your meals, you're going to be the most satisfied when you're eating whole, unprocessed foods because they're going to keep you full, satiated, well-nourished. They're going to give you all those vitamins, those minerals that our body needs to function well. So how do we make a well-balanced meal? A well-balanced meal consists of protein, carbs, and fats. And a good ratio that I like to just follow as like a standard ratio, 30% protein, 40% carbs, 30% fat. This can definitely range like 5 or 10% plus or minus on each of them, depending on you and how you feel and day to day. But that's a general recommendation on portions. Let's start with protein. Protein gets a lot of love. People talk about protein. People see the benefits of protein. And it's because it really is beneficial. It's going to help you build muscle. It's going to help you maintain a healthy weight, curb your hunger, really satiate you. This is important when you're recovering from exercise, recovering from injury. Protein is just very, very important. And then within the protein foods, a lot of them have really good vitamin and mineral content. So that also helps us function better. The best sources of protein are going to be the unprocessed forms of it. So eggs, meats, fish, beef, chicken, pork, a lot of animal products are really beneficial for protein. But if you're not eating animal products for whatever reason, you really got to make sure you're getting enough tempeh, tofu, plain Greek yogurt, lentils, beans, cottage cheese. But just know that animal products do have usually a higher protein content per calorie amount. So if you're really trying to up your protein, the animal products are really going to help you get there. Some things that we don't want to use as much are things like protein powders, protein snacks, protein bars. The protein space has become a business, right? There are so many protein snacks and foods and things that I've seen marketed as protein foods that are actually not protein foods at all. A quick, easy way to know if a food is high in protein and it's a good protein source is when you look at the food label, the amount of protein in grams, multiply that by 10. And if that equals or is above the total calories for that food, then it's a decent protein source. Of course, the best ones usually don't have a label, right? So we want to try to have those as much as possible, the meats, the eggs, etc. But let's say I do find a protein bar or a protein snack that I want in a pinch. Look at the protein and actually see if that amount of protein times 10 is higher than the amount of calories. That usually means that there's a good ratio of protein within that food for that serving size for those calories. A lot of times I see protein bars and protein snacks. For example, I'm looking at one right now. The total calories is 180 calories and the amount of protein is 4 grams, right? So multiply 4 by 10, that's 40. 40 out of 180, that is nowhere near a good protein source, but all over the front, it's marketed and labeled as a protein snack. Not only are these snacks usually very low in protein, they're also usually very high in added sugar. Like for example, Cliff Bars, they are so high in added sugar, they're basically a sugar bar. Every now and then, yes, if you're in a pinch, you're hungry, or you just want to have something like this, that's fine. But to use these as your highest source of protein is not going to actually give you the protein that you're looking for. You would have to eat so much of it to get the amount of protein that you need. And at that point, you're way over the calories for those foods. You know what I'm saying? The next macronutrient is carbs. And I love carbs because who doesn't like carbs? Carbs are so good. They're so satiating. They're so fun. And they get a lot of hate, honestly. Carbs are not the villain. Carbohydrates are essential for a lot of our body's processes. Carbs are great for helping with digestion, our brain health, energy storage, and carbohydrates are a major source of our body's energy. But it's important to know that not every carbohydrate is created equally. A lot of times when people talk about we need to cut out carbs, they're talking about the simple carbs that are very high in sugar. Unfortunately, a lot of processed carbs are very high in added sugar. And added sugar has no nutritional benefit for us, and this is where carbs get the bad rep. Foods high in added sugar are also usually very low in fiber, which we'll talk about in a second. But without the fiber, this added sugar really causes a spike in our blood sugar and our insulin. Short term, this is going to make you feel off. You might feel brain fog. You might feel tired, low energy. But over time is what I'm more concerned about. And that's where over time, this imbalance in blood sugar and insulin is contributing to prediabetes, diabetes, even dementia, they're saying, is considered type 3 diabetes, insulin resistance, hormone health, PCOS, all these different things. Our blood sugar matters. Our insulin matters. The better way to eat carbs would be eating what we call complex carbs, which take a longer time to digest. They keep you full longer. They balance out your blood sugar and insulin, and they have more nutrients. And a key to a good carb food is fiber. Unfortunately, most Americans are deficient in fiber. That's because a lot of processed foods that typically would have fiber in them, like a potato, right? And a potato chip, they strip the fiber away because that makes you keep eating them. Fiber makes you feel full. So without fiber, you could eat a whole bag of potato chips and not even think twice about it. There's 2 different types of fiber. There's soluble fiber and insoluble fiber. Soluble fiber can dissolve in water, and this helps lower cholesterol and improve your blood sugar. And insoluble fiber can't dissolve in water. And insoluble fiber is responsible for adding bulk to the stool, which helps with your digestion, helps with constipation, makes going to the bathroom way easier. And a good recommendation for fiber for women is greater than 25 grams per day. Some foods that help increase your fiber are fruits and vegetables like apples. Apples are great, but make sure you eat the skin too, because there's a lot of fiber in the skin. Bananas, oranges, prunes, raspberries, and then things like lentils, almonds. These are some higher fiber foods that will help get the digestion moving and make you feel better long term. Fiber is also great for feeding the good bacteria in your gut. When we talk about gut health, fiber is one of those things that the bacteria in your gut are actually breaking down. You've probably heard of supplements called prebiotics. Fiber is a real prebiotic. Fiber is the prebiotic. That's the OG prebiotic. Fiber feeds the good bacteria in your gut, which if you increase your fiber over time, those good bacteria are going to grow and multiply, and then your gut microbiome is going to improve. There are a lot more details and things when it comes to gut health. Our guts are amazing and they're very complex, but to keep it simple, fiber is a great thing that you could give your gut. Your gut loves fiber. Don't be surprised though, if you've been deficient in fiber for a while and you start giving yourself more fiber, you might have some gas going on. Don't be surprised. That's normal if your body's not used to it. It's trying to break it down. It's the bacteria going to work. It does improve over time, so don't worry about that. And then the last micronutrient that we'll talk about is fat. And I think we've gotten past the misconception that fats make you fat. Fats are super beneficial in our bodies. They're really helpful with vitamin absorption, specifically fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. They're also really beneficial for brain development and function. They help promote healthy cells, protects your heart, your hormones, and gives you that slow burning energy. Healthy fats are especially important for women and specifically their hormone health and their menstrual cycle. This is just coming from my own observations, but in my own life, when I'm having healthy fats, my cycle improves. And when I'm not having enough healthy fats, my cycle changes. And I've seen it happen with clients and friends as well. Someone needs to do a research study on that, but healthy fats are known to support hormones, so it makes sense. The best sources of healthy fats are high quality olive oil, avocados, egg yolks, chia seeds, flax seeds, really any kind of seed, any kind of nut. But when you're picking out healthy fats, make sure you're looking at the labels. Even things like nuts, I've seen them have a lot of additives for really no reason. Like you'll think you're buying a pack of almonds and then you turn it around and you read the ingredients and it's almonds plus this oil, plus this salt, plus this sugar. And then here it's like a sugary snack when it should have just been plain nuts. This happens with a lot of trail mixes I've seen. So if you're into trail mix and you want to start adding in nuts, they're a great snack, but make your own. Buy the nuts individually and then put them in your own jar. That's what I do because a lot of those things have a lot of sneaky little additives. Overall though, like we said towards the beginning, the best diet is one that's made up of whole unprocessed foods. So if you're confused about something, ideally, things without a barcode are the best sources. But if it does have a barcode, read the ingredients, read the nutrition facts. I personally, when I'm reading a food label, look at the ingredients first. If it's super long with a lot of added stuff, it's not great. Doesn't mean I won't eat it every now and then, but it's not something that's going to become a foundational part of my diet. And then I also like to look at added sugar, protein content, and fiber if I'm looking at a carb food. Saturated fat is another thing that you can look out for, but we didn't talk about that in this episode, so that could be something for the future. There's so many different things and there's nuances and there's details in this and it's a complex topic, but I wanted to keep it kind of simple and basic, but still give you enough that you actually feel like you learned something. I don't think we have time today to get into the micronutrient side. That's like your vitamins, your minerals, etc. So for now, I'll just link the episode in the description. And then in the future, I'll make like a basics guidebook to the micronutrients. This is a topic that I love talking about, and it's something that gets confusing for a lot of people. So I like that I can kind of break it down and simplify it. So if you like these episodes, really let me know on Instagram because I would love to hear like what I should do more of and what I should do less of. I know I get a lot of positive feedback on my story time, funny, girly type of episodes, but these episodes where I'm really diving into the details and the weeds usually do a lot better. Like they just get more views, more listens. So let me know what you think of these because I can dive into each topic. Like I can make a whole episode on fiber if that's something that you're interested in, but I also don't want to bore people. So let me know, please, and I will do it. This podcast is for you. I want to serve you. I want to give you what you're curious about. So send me your questions. Send me what you're confused on. And like I said, if you're curious about your own macros or whatever, send me a DM. I got time. I'm off in the summer. So let me know. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you guys next week. Bye.